A single storm. One night, two people from completely different worlds. And 9 months later, everything changed. But before I tell you how it started, let me show you the moment it almost ended forever. Picture this. A hospital room, fluorescent lights humming overhead. A woman who just gave birth to twins, her body exhausted, her heart shattered. And a man, a billionaire who'd spent 4 months searching for her. He's sitting beside her bed, holding two tiny babies, tears streaming down his face. She looks at him and says, "I pushed you away. I told you to leave. Why did you come back?" And he says, his voice breaking, "Because seeing them, holding them, knowing you went through this alone. I can't do this anymore, Delilah. I can't pretend I'm okay without you. I can't keep my distance when every cell in my body is screaming that you three are my entire world. I burned down the life you thought I couldn't live without. I chose you, I've been choosing you, and I'll keep choosing you until I run out of breath. Now, you want to know how two people from opposite sides of the universe ended up in that hospital room? How a housemaid and a billionaire created a love so powerful it destroyed everything in its path just to survive? Then stay with me, because this story will make you question everything you think you know about wealth, about class, about what it really means to be rich, and I promise you, by the end, you'll never look at love the same way again. I'm Mr. Whitmore, and this is a story about when lightning strikes and two souls collide, and nothing, absolutely nothing, is ever the same. But before we begin, I need something from you. If you believe that real love transcends bank accounts and social status, hit that like button right now. Subscribe to this channel because I bring you stories that don't just entertain, they transform. And drop a comment telling me, have you ever met someone who was completely wrong for you on paper, but absolutely right in your soul? I want to hear your story. Because your engagement, your likes, your comments, they tell me that these lessons matter, that you're hungry for truth wrapped in story. So do that for me. And let's dive in. This story begins on a night when nature decided to remind humanity exactly who was in charge. The Castellane estate sat on 12 acres of Connecticut coastline, like a sleeping giant made of stone and privilege. Delilah Monroe had worked there for 3 years, moving through its 47 rooms like a ghost. Invisible. That's what good staff learned to be. You cleaned spaces their owners never entered. You polished the silver for dinner parties you'd never attend. You existed in the margins of wealth so vast it stopped feeling real. Delilah pressed her palm against the window of the east wing, watching the sky turn violent. Thunder announced itself like artillery fire. Rain fell in sheets so thick the ocean beyond disappeared into gray nothing. Her uniform, white shirt and black slacks that had seen 3 years of wear clung to her body. She'd been outside securing furniture when the storm hit early, faster than the weather service predicted. Her dark curls, usually pinned into submission, now fell wild and soaked down her back. She was alone. The rest of the staff had left hours ago. Mrs. Chen, the head housekeeper, had given everyone the night off since Mr. Castellane wasn't expected back from Singapore until Thursday. But Delilah had stayed. She always stayed. Extra hours meant extra money, and extra money meant Sienna got new shoes instead of hand-me-downs. It meant the electricity stayed on. It meant survival, Delilah. The voice came from shadows near the library entrance, smooth and exhausted in equal measure. She spun, heart launching into her throat. Adrian Castellane stood backlit by amber sconces, his tailored shirt unbuttoned at the collar, sleeves rolled to reveal forearms that suggested he did more than sign contracts. His dark hair, usually maintained with ruthless precision, was disheveled, but his eyes, storm gray, currently fixed on her with unsettling intensity. Those eyes held something that made breathing difficult. Mr. Castellane. Delilah straightened instinctively, smoothing her soaked shirt in a futile gesture toward propriety. I didn't. I thought you were in Singapore, the staff briefing said. Thursday. Flight canceled. Weather. He moved closer and she caught the scent of expensive cologne mixing with rain. I arrived an hour ago to find the house empty, except for you. Everyone left before the storm. Mrs. Chen gave them the night off since you weren't expected until Thursday. Delilah's voice steadied despite her pulse doing complicated things. I stayed to finish the West Gallery. I can leave if you need privacy. Don't. The single word hung between them, weighted with something neither could name. Adrian's jaw tightened as if the word had escaped without permission. The roads are flooding. The bridge to town is closed. You shouldn't drive in this. Delilah's practical mind cataloged problems. Her daughter Sienna was safe with Roxy for the night. Her car was reliable enough, but staying overnight in an empty mansion with Adrian Castellane violated approximately 17 workplace boundaries. She'd worked here 3 years, and they'd exchanged maybe 30 words total. He was a stranger who happened to sign her paychecks. "I'll be careful," she said, even as lightning illuminated the world outside in violent white, revealing conditions that made careful a joke. "I'm not asking." Authority colored his tone, the voice of a man whose empire was built on people obeying. Then softer. "Please. I prefer not to worry about my staff drowning on my watch." Staff. The word should have created distance. Instead, it felt like a lie they were both pretending to believe. "There are 47 bedrooms in this house," Adrian continued, his gaze never leaving hers. "Take anyone you want. I'll stay in my wing." "You won't, even though I'm here." That was the first lie of the night. The knowing he was there part proved impossible to ignore. Delilah claimed a guest room on the 3rd floor, far from the master wing, far from temptation that shouldn't exist. She showered in a bathroom larger than her entire apartment's kitchen, standing under rainfall pressure that felt like luxury attacking her. The estate provided guest robes, silk, because apparently even emergency clothing in this world costs more than her monthly rent. She should have stayed in the room, should have locked the door, slept through the storm, left at dawn before Adrian woke, should have done anything except what she did, which was wander downstairs at midnight, restless and hungry, pulled by insomnia, and the kind of recklessness that only strikes when you're wearing silk robes in castles that aren't yours. The kitchen glowed softly. And there, standing before the open refrigerator, like he'd forgotten what food was, stood Adrian Castellane, barefoot in dark lounge pants and a t-shirt that should have made him look ordinary, but somehow made him devastatingly human. "Can't sleep either?" His question came without surprise, as if he'd known she'd appear. "Big storms make me nervous." Delilah stayed in the doorway, maintaining distance like a safety net. "And I'm hungry. I'll just grab something and go back upstairs." "Sit." He gestured to the island where he'd assembled an unlikely collection. Bread, cheese, wine, chocolate. I was attempting to remember how normal people feed themselves when staff isn't doing it for them. Normal people usually manage without the $15 cheese. But Delilah sat because her feet hurt and he looked so genuinely lost. Among his own groceries, it was almost endearing. "Is it $15? Adrian examined the label with academic interest. "Seems reasonable for cheese. You have no idea what things cost, do you?" "Not even slightly." He poured wine into crystal glasses with the ease of someone who'd done it 1,000 times at galas and fundraisers. "Tell me what things cost. Educate the ignorant billionaire." There was no mockery in it, just genuine curiosity wrapped in self-deprecation. Delilah accepted the wine, their fingers brushing in the exchange. Electric. Inevitable. "Bread costs $3, she said, tearing off a piece. "Unless you buy the fancy kind you probably have here, which costs $7. Cheese, normal cheese, is maybe $5. "This wine?" She sipped, tasting complexity she couldn't name. "I don't even want to know. $200 a bottle, but in my defense, I didn't choose it. Someone on my team handles wine acquisition." Adrian settled across from her, close enough that she could see silver threading his temples, the exhaustion carved around his eyes. What else? Tell me about real life. I've forgotten what that looks like. You want me to explain poverty to you while we drink $200 wine? Delilah should have felt angry. Instead, she felt something closer to pity. That's tragically ironic. Everything about me is tragically ironic. His smile carried shadows. Surrounded by hundreds of people. Lonely enough to go mad. Capable of buying anything except the one thing that matters. Which is connection. Truth. Someone who will tell me this cheese is overpriced and my life is absurd. His gray eyes held hers, intense and vulnerable, in ways that made her chest ache. Someone like you, who's looking at me like I'm human instead of an asset to manage or a wallet to access. Delilah's breath caught. This was dangerous territory. The kind that swallowed women like her whole. You're my employer. I clean your house. This, she gestured between them. Whatever you think this is, it can't be. I know. But he didn't look away. I know all the reasons, the power imbalance, the inappropriateness, the fact that I shouldn't even be looking at you the way I am right now. But Delilah, her name in his mouth felt intimate. When's the last time someone looked at you and really saw you? Too long. The answer was too long, and he somehow knew it. I have a daughter, she said instead, deploying truth like a shield. Sienna. She's 5. Brilliant and exhausting and everything I work for. Tell me about her. So she did. And somehow that spiraled into hours of a conversation that felt like confessional and discovery simultaneously. Adrian told her about the empire that owned him, about parents who loved their legacy more than their son, about an engagement that had ended when he'd realized his fiancée, Victoria, loved his portfolio more than his person. She was perfect on paper, Adrian said, swirling wine in his glass. Old family, proper education, knew exactly which fork to use at state dinners. But when I looked at her, I felt nothing. And when she looked at me, I saw calculations. What our merger would create. What our children would inherit. Never just me. So you ended it? I should have. His jaw clenched. But I didn't. I was engaged to her the night of the storm. Delilah's hand froze halfway to her mouth. You were engaged. When you offered to share the room. Her voice dropped. When we had this conversation. No. Adrian leaned forward, urgent. I mean, yes, technically. But I'd already decided to end it. That morning before I flew out, Victoria and I had a fight. She laughed when I suggested we postpone the wedding. Said I'd come to my senses when I remembered what mattered. And I realized, sitting on that plane to Singapore, that I was marching toward a life that would kill me slowly. Delilah absorbed this, weighing his words against her instinct. So tonight is what? Your rebellion? Your last taste of freedom before you go back to your perfect fiancé? No. He reached across the island, his hand covering hers. Tonight is me remembering what it feels like to be real. And tomorrow, I end it with Victoria. Permanently. You can't make promises like that. Watch me. The air between them charged with something dangerous and inevitable. Delilah should have pulled her hand away. Should have gone back upstairs. Should have remembered that men like Adrian Castellane didn't choose women like her for anything except temporary distraction. I paint, she said instead, words tumbling out. Or I used to. I have an art degree that's gathering dust while I scrub toilets. Because canvas costs money, and time costs money, and everything costs money except dreams. Those are free, weightless, completely useless when you're trying to keep the lights on. Paint something for me. Now, it wasn't quite a command, wasn't quite a request. It's 2 a.m. I don't have supplies. This is insane. There's a studio. 3rd floor, south wing, fully stocked. Some decorator's idea of authenticity. He stood, extending his hand. Come on, show me what poverty killed. Let me see who you were before the world made you small. His hand hung in the air between them. Delilah knew taking it meant crossing lines she couldn't uncross. Knew that touch would lead to more touching. Knew this was the cliff's edge and stepping forward meant free fall. She took his hand. The studio smelled of expensive materials and abandonment. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the storm's violence. Lightning provided irregular illumination, making the space feel alive and electric. Adrian watched Delilah move through it, like watching someone remember how to breathe. She ran her fingers over brushes, oils, canvas stretched and waiting. Her expression cycled through grief and hunger and something achingly beautiful. "Paint me," Adrian said quietly. "However you see me. Truth, not flattery." That's incredibly narcissistic. But she was already selecting brushes, mixing colors with the muscle memory of someone who thought this part of herself had died. "Then paint yourself. Paint the storm. Paint anything, just let me watch you come alive." So she painted, while thunder provided percussion and rain created rhythm, and Adrian sat motionless, his gaze tracking every stroke. She painted the storm, but it came out looking like chaos becoming beauty. Violence transforming to creation. Dark colors bleeding into light. She lost herself in it, forgot about class divides and power imbalances, and every reason this night was dangerous. Existed only in the space between visions and execution, between what she felt and what appeared on canvas. When she finally stepped back, hours had dissolved. Dawn threatened the horizon with pale gray light. The painting stood unfinished but powerful, raw and honest and completely her. "It's magnificent." Adrian's voice came rough with emotion. He moved behind her, not touching, but close enough that his heat warmed her back. "It's unfinished, raw, probably terrible. It's you." He moved closer still, his breath stirring her hair. Unfinished and raw and absolutely perfect. Delilah turned, and suddenly they were inches apart. His hand rose to cup her face, thumb tracing her cheekbone with reverence that made her knees weak. "Tell me to stop," he whispered. "Tell me this is wrong and we should forget tonight happened. It's wrong." But her hands fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer. "We should absolutely forget this." Liar. When their lips met, it felt like the storm had relocated inside Delilah's chest. Adrian kissed her like drowning and surfacing simultaneously, like she was oxygen after years of suffocation. She kissed him back with months, years of loneliness condensed into desperate need. They stumbled toward the chaise in the corner, propriety abandoned along with good sense. His hands learned her body with worship that made her weep. Her mouth discovered the taste of his surrender. "Wait," Delilah gasped against his mouth. "Wait, I need to know. Is this real? Or am I just convenient? Just a help who happened to be here when you were feeling lonely?" Adrian pulled back enough to meet her eyes, his own blazing with intensity that stole her breath. "You think this is convenience? I've been surrounded by convenient for 38 years. This." He kissed her again, slower, deeper. "This is the opposite of convenient. This is terrifying and necessary, and the most real thing I've felt in my entire life. What happens in the morning? I don't know." His honesty was devastating. "I don't know anything except that right now, tonight, I need you like I need air. Let tomorrow take care of itself." And Delilah, who'd spent her entire adult life planning and preparing and protecting herself from uncertainty, made the reckless choice to surrender to now. They came together with the frantic urgency of people who knew mourning would end this, who needed to compress forever into a single night. Adrian touched her like she was art worth studying, precious and irreplaceable. Delilah held him like he was shelter worth keeping, safety in human form. Against rain-soaked windows, they found each other. His hands mapped her body with worship. Her mouth learned the taste of his surrender. They moved together with the rhythm of people who'd been lonely so long that connection felt like resurrection. Stay with me. Adrian breathed against her neck, his voice wrecked. After tonight, after everything, stay with me. We don't even know each other's last names. I know your heart beats faster when you talk about your daughter. I know you see beauty in emptiness. I know you taste like wine and courage. He kissed her deeply, stealing her breath. That's more than I've known about anyone in years. Delilah wanted to promise forever, wanted to believe this stranger could be her salvation, but she learned that passion burned bright and fast, leaving only ash. Let's have tonight, she said instead, her voice breaking. Let it be perfect. Don't ruin it with tomorrow. So they loved through the storm's fury. Once with tenderness, again with hunger, a third time with the desperate knowing that dawn would end this. They fell asleep tangled together, his heartbeat against her spine, her fingers laced with his. Delilah woke to silence. The storm had passed, pale light filtered through curtains, turning the studio golden and gentle, and the space beside her was empty. She found his note on the pillow. You were right. Tonight was perfect. I won't ruin it by trying to force tomorrow. Thank you for reminding me I'm real. No name, no number, just the ghost of cedar scent on the sheets. Delilah dressed in yesterday's clothes and walked through the mansion that suddenly felt like a mausoleum. The lobby was empty. The clerk who'd been on duty was gone, replaced by morning shift staff who nodded politely, unaware that something seismic had occurred in their carefully maintained universe. The drive home felt longer than it should. She stopped twice to cry without understanding why. He was a stranger, one night, meaningless in the scope of her life. But when she returned to her cramped apartment and Roxy brought Sienna home, Delilah pressed her hand to her stomach where an impossible flutter whispered, "Some nights rewrite your entire existence." She just didn't know how, completely. Not yet. 6 weeks later, Delilah sat on her bathroom floor, knees pulled to her chest, staring at 3 positive pregnancy tests, like they might change their verdict if she looked hard enough. 3 lines, all of them screaming the same truth. Pregnant. Oh God. The words came out broken, half laugh, half sob. Oh God, oh God, oh God. Roxy appeared in the doorway, took one look at the test and sank down beside her. Oh, honey. Oh, Lila, what are you going to do? I don't know. Delilah's voice came hollow, distant, like it belonged to someone else. How do I tell a billionaire I'm pregnant with his child when he probably doesn't even remember my name? Do you even know how to find him? That was the question, wasn't it? Delilah had tried, had called the estate only to be told Mr. Castellane was traveling abroad indefinitely. Had searched online for Adrian Castellane and found 1,000 results, none of which gave her a personal phone number or email address. Had discovered he wasn't just wealthy, he was generational wealth. Old money mixed with new empire. Completely, utterly unreachable. He left, Delilah said quietly. The morning after, he left a note saying it was perfect and then he disappeared. What does that tell you? It tells me he's an idiot. Roxy wrapped an arm around her shoulders. But Lila, you can't do this alone. Twins. The word tasted impossible. 3 heartbeats where there should be 1. Delilah had already had the first ultrasound. Had sat alone in that sterile room, watching the technician's expression shift from routine to surprised. Had heard the words, "Congratulations, you're having twins," and felt her entire world tilt sideways. 2 babies, 2 tiny humans who would need food and clothes and stability. 2 reasons her life would never be the same. I'll figure it out, Delilah said, and heard the steel entering her voice. Her mother had raised her alone after her father left. Had worked herself into an early grave, providing and protecting. If her mother could do it, so could she. I've been poor before. I know how to survive. This isn't about surviving. This is about 3 lives. Roxy's voice gentled. You and 2 babies who deserve their father. Even if he's a coward who runs from consequences. He doesn't know. The defense came automatic. He doesn't know, so he can't be blamed for not being here. But Delilah wondered, would he want to know? Would he step up, or would he offer money to make the problem disappear? Would he accuse her of trapping him, just like Victoria would undoubtedly say if she knew? The question spiraled until Delilah felt like she was drowning on dry land. She made a decision that felt like both courage and cowardice. She wouldn't tell him, wouldn't chase down a man who'd made it clear that one perfect night was all he wanted. She'd handle this alone, the way she handled everything. She'd protect her babies from rejection before they were even born. I'm keeping them, Delilah said firmly. Whatever it takes, whatever I have to do, I'm keeping them, and I'm going to give them a good life. Roxy nodded, accepting the declaration. Then we figure this out together. You're not alone, Lila. You've got me. But in the dark hours before dawn, when morning sickness drove her from bed to bathroom tile, Delilah let herself remember. Adrian's hands cradling her face, his voice rough with want. Stay with me. The way he'd looked at her paintings on her phone like they mattered more than profit margins. She tried finding him again. Hired a cheap online service that promised to locate anyone, but Adrian Castellane was a ghost wrapped in privacy. The service found his company headquarters, his board memberships, his charity foundation, but no personal contact information. No way through the walls of wealth and staff that surrounded him. Maybe it's better this way, she told her reflection at 12 weeks, her belly just beginning to show. Maybe he's married. Maybe that night was his escape from someone else. Maybe I need to stop torturing myself with maybes and accept reality. Reality was this. She quit her position at the Castellane estate the next day, claiming family emergency. Took a job at a hotel an hour away, where the pay was worse, but she wouldn't have to see his face in every room. Wouldn't have to remember. Reality was buying maternity clothes from thrift stores and calculating how long she could work before her body made working impossible. Reality was Sienna asking, Mama, why is your belly getting big? And having to explain in 5-year-old terms that she was going to be a big sister. Watching Sienna's face light up with pure joy and feeling her heart break because these babies would never know their father. By 16 weeks, Delilah looked like she was carrying a basketball. The doctor said twins grew faster, showed earlier, demanded more. Her body changed with alarming speed. Her breasts grew tender and full. Her waist disappeared beneath expanding roundness. She was exhausted constantly, hungry constantly, emotional constantly. Have you thought about names? Roxy asked one evening while helping Delilah assemble cribs in the cramped second bedroom. Names. Delilah had thought about little else. She wanted names that meant something. Names that carried strength and beauty that her daughters could wear with pride. Luna and Nova, she said softly. Luna for the moon that had watched over that night. Nova for new beginnings, for the explosion of stars, for miracles born from chaos. Those are beautiful. Roxy tightened the screw, her expression thoughtful. What will you tell them when they ask about their father? The truth, that I met someone who made me feel alive, that we had one perfect night, that he doesn't know they exist because I chose not to tell him. They'll want to know why, because I was scared. Delilah's hand rested on her stomach where two distinct personalities already made themselves known. One kicked constantly, a tiny fighter. The other seemed to sleep through everything, peaceful and still, because their mama was terrified of seeing disappointment in his eyes, of hearing him suggest alternatives to keeping them, of watching him choose his empire over his daughters. What if you're wrong? What if he would have chosen them? Then I'm protecting them from a father who would have needed convincing to love them. Delilah's voice hardened. My girls will never wonder if they're wanted. They'll never question if they're enough. I'll make sure of that. The months crawled forward. Delilah's body became a vessel for two miracles she could barely afford. Anonymous payments started appearing. Her medical bills were mysteriously paid. Her landlord called to say her rent had been prepaid for a year. Sienna's kindergarten received a donation that expanded their art program. It took Delilah 3 weeks to connect the dots. Adrian. Somehow, despite her attempts to disappear, he'd found her, was taking care of them from the shadows. She should have been grateful. Instead, she felt furious. How dare he play guardian angel from a distance while denying her the chance to let him be an actual father? How dare he offer money instead of presents? She tried to refuse the help, called her landlord to say there must be a mistake, but the money had already cleared, the source anonymous and untraceable, just like Adrian himself. Fine, Delilah told her swollen reflection at 30 weeks. Fine, if he wants to ease his conscience with money, I'll take it. But these girls are mine. My responsibility, my joy, my entire world. He gets no credit for writing checks. But she was lying to herself, because late at night, feeling two lives moving inside her, Delilah ached for the impossible. Ached to share this with someone who would understand the terror and wonder in equal measure. Ached for strong hands to rub her swollen feet, and a deep voice to read stories to the babies who could already hear. Ached for Adrian in ways that made her hate herself for weakness. The twins arrived early on a snow-locked February night. Delilah's water broke at home, contractions hitting fast and vicious, pain that rewrote her understanding of suffering. Roxy. Delilah gasped, doubled over in the kitchen. Roxy, something's wrong. It's too early. They're not supposed to come for 4 more weeks. We're going. Now. Roxy grabbed the hospital bag, her phone, her keys, moved with the efficiency of someone who prepared for this moment. Come on, honey. Breathe through it. We're going to be fine. The drive through dangerous roads blurred into nightmare. Delilah breathed through contractions that felt like her body was tearing itself apart. Snow fell thick and fast, making visibility almost zero. Every bump in the road sent fresh agony through her spine. Call him, Roxy urged, eyes on the treacherous road. Delilah, call Adrian. He deserves to know his daughters are being born. No. The word came through gritted teeth. I can do this alone. Except she couldn't. They arrived at the hospital and everything went wrong. The babies were positioned incorrectly. Delilah's blood pressure spiked to dangerous levels. Doctors used words like emergency cesarean and fetal distress, with tones that made fear taste metallic. We need to operate now, a doctor said, her voice professionally calm, in a way that suggested nothing was calm. Miss Monroe, do you understand? We need to get these babies out now, or we risk losing them. Do it, Delilah heard herself say. Whatever you have to do, save my babies. Through the haze of panic and drugs being pumped into her IV, Delilah heard Roxy on the phone in the hallway. I don't care what she said. Get here now, Adrian. Your children are being born and she's scared and you need to be here. Adrian. His name was a prayer and a curse. Delilah wanted to be angry at Roxy's interference. Instead, she felt relief so profound it brought tears. Let him come. Let him see what his one perfect night had created. Let him choose to stay or go with full knowledge of what he was accepting or rejecting. The operating room was too bright, too cold, too full of people in masks and gloves. Delilah lay on the table, feeling her body betray her, feeling control slip away like water through fingers. You're going to be fine, a nurse said, holding her hand. Your babies are going to be fine. Just breathe. But Delilah couldn't breathe. Couldn't think beyond the terror that she might not survive to meet her daughters. That Luna and Nova might enter the world without their mother. That Adrian might arrive to find he'd lost her before he'd ever really had her. The last thing she remembered before anesthesia pulled her under was a commotion at the operating room door. A voice, deep and frantic, demanding to be let in. Her name shouted with raw desperation. Adrian. And then, darkness. Delilah surfaced from anesthesia to find Adrian sitting beside her hospital bed, holding 2 bundles like they were made of spun glass and wishes. His face was wet, his expression shattered and awed simultaneously. He looked like he'd aged a decade in hours, like he'd run through hell to get here. like he'd never been more terrified or more grateful in his entire life. You came? Delilah's voice came hoarse from intubation, from screaming she didn't remember, from a body that had just been split open and stitched back together. Did you think I wouldn't? Adrian stood carefully, bringing the babies closer. Roxy called. I was in New York. I broke several traffic laws getting here. Delilah, they're... His voice fractured completely. They're perfect. 2 daughters. You gave me 2 perfect daughters. I didn't give you anything. I pushed you away. And I've spent 4 months respecting your choice while going insane missing you. Adrian sat on the bed's edge, close enough that she could see the exhaustion lining his face, the silver threading his temples more prominently now, the evidence of nights spent sleepless. But seeing them, holding them, knowing you went through this alone. His jaw clenched, working around emotion. I can't do this anymore, Delilah. I can't pretend I'm okay without you. I can't keep my distance when every cell in my body is screaming that you 3 are my entire world. Now pause right here with me for a moment, because this is where everything changes. This is the moment when pride meets love and one of them has to surrender. See, Delilah had built walls to protect herself, had convinced herself that being alone was safer than risking rejection, that her daughters deserved a mother who was strong enough to handle everything solo. But strength isn't always about carrying weight alone. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is let someone else help carry the load. And Adrian, this man had spent 4 months proving he wasn't the person Delilah feared he was, had quietly paid her bills, not to control her, but to support her, had given her space while simultaneously showing her through actions that he wasn't going anywhere. This is what real love looks like, my friends. Not perfect, not easy, but persistent, consistent, showing up even when showing up is hard. Let's get back to that hospital room. Victoria was right, Delilah said, her voice small and broken. I don't fit in your world. Look at me. A single mother with 3 kids now. I clean hotel rooms for a living. I shop at thrift stores. I'm everything your board of directors would call an embarrassment. Victoria was poison. Steel entered Adrian's voice, and I was a coward for not shutting her down with the force she deserved. But Delilah, I'm not that uncertain man anymore. I've spent 4 months making choices. He shifted the babies carefully, somehow managing to hold both while pulling out his phone with his free hand. He showed her articles she hadn't seen. Headlines about Adrian Castellane stepping down from his family's company board, about restructuring his empire to focus on philanthropic work, about publicly cutting ties with social circles that valued pedigree over people. I burned it down, Adrian said quietly, his gray eyes holding hers with absolute certainty. The life Victoria wanted me to preserve, the world that would have judged you. I kept the businesses that matter and discarded everything that doesn't, because you were right. We are from different worlds, so I chose yours. Delilah's throat closed around words that wouldn't form. Her mind couldn't process what he was saying, that he dismantled his life for her, for the possibility of them. I bought a house, Adrian continued, and his voice held something fragile and hopeful. Not an estate, a home, 4 bedrooms in a normal neighborhood with good schools and neighbors who don't care about stock portfolios. I've been learning to cook without burning things, learning what normal life costs, building the world I should have asked you to share instead of expecting you to fit into mine. Why? The question came out broken. Why would you do that? Because I love you. The confession landed simple and devastating. Because our daughters deserve a father who's present, not performing. Because that night in the storm, you showed me who I could be if I was brave enough to be real. He set the phone aside, his free hand finding hers. I'm being real now. No pretense, no protection. Just me, asking. Delilah Monroe, will you let me be part of this? Will you let me be their father? Will you give me the chance to prove I choose you? That I choose us? You left. Delilah's voice cracked on the accusation. That morning, after. You left a note and you disappeared. I went straight to Victoria's family estate and ended it. Publicly, brutally, with no room for reconciliation. Adrian's thumb traced her knuckles. Then I spent 3 months searching for you. You'd quit your job at the estate. I had no phone number, no address, nothing. I hired investigators, called every hotel in a 100-mile radius, drove myself and everyone around me insane trying to find you. The medical bills, the rent. The moment I found you, I did the only thing I could from a distance. I took care of you the only way you'd let me. With money, since you'd made it clear you didn't want me personally. I was scared. The admission came quiet, but honest. Terrified that you'd wake up and resent us. That this would be obligation instead of choice. Look at me. Adrian waited until her eyes met his. I'm holding our daughters. I'm sitting in this hospital after driving through a snowstorm because I couldn't bear the thought of them entering the world without me. Does this look like obligation? It looks like a beginning. Then let it be one. Let me start. Let me show you every single day that this is real. One of the babies, the larger one, made a small sound. Adrian looked down at her with such devastating tenderness that Delilah's remaining defenses crumbled like sandcastles against tide. I have conditions, Delilah said, finding strength in honesty. Therapy. Both of us. Because we have different languages for love and we need to learn translation. Complete transparency, even when it's ugly. And you need to mean it, Adrian. Not just now when everything's emotional and the babies are new, but in 2 years when things get hard. In 10 years when we're exhausted. In 50 years when we're old and still figuring each other out. I mean it. His gray eyes held absolute certainty. Every year, every hard day, every moment. I'm choosing you, Delilah. I'll keep choosing you until I run out of breath. The smaller baby began to fuss, her tiny face scrunching in displeasure. Adrian stood smoothly, swaying in the instinctive rhythm of someone who'd been born to comfort tiny humans. It was awkward and unpracticed, but genuine, and watching him try made Delilah's chest ache. Have you named them? He asked softly. I wanted to wait. Delilah stopped, unable to articulate the hope she'd been afraid to acknowledge. To see if you would be here to help choose. I'm here. Adrian's voice carried the weight of promise. I'm here and I'm not going anywhere. So let's name our daughters together. Luna? Delilah said, looking at the larger baby in Adrian's arms. For the moon, for light and darkness, for cycles and phases, and the constancy of something beautiful, even when you can't always see it whole. Luna. Adrian tested the name reverently, looking down at the baby who'd gone quiet at the sound of his voice. Luna Castellane. Luna Monroe, Delilah corrected, gently. They have my name, Luna Castellane Monroe, Adrian amended without hesitation. Both of us, all of us, one family. And her sister is Nova, for new stars, for explosions that create light, for beginnings born from chaos. Nova Castellane Monroe. Adrian's smile could have powered cities, our daughters, our family. You're assuming I said yes to being together. You haven't said no. Delilah looked at him, this impossible man who dismantled his empire to build her a home, who held their daughters like they were the entire universe condensed, and felt the last of her resistance dissolve like sugar in warm water. Ask me again, she whispered. Adrian shifted both babies carefully to one arm, impressive and terrifying simultaneously, and took her hand. His fingers laced through hers, warm and solid and real. Delilah Monroe, mother of my daughters, woman who paints chaos into beauty, love of my life. Will you let me into your world? Will you take this terrifying leap and build forever with me? Yes, the word came simple and absolute, carrying the weight of choice rather than obligation. Yes, but if you ever make unilateral decisions to protect me again, I'll make you regret it. Fair terms. He leaned forward carefully, mindful of the babies between them, and kissed her softly. I accept completely. A nurse knocked and entered, her expression professionally cheerful. Visiting hours are technically over, but given the circumstances, we're making an exception. Dad, do you want to do skin-to-skin contact with your girls? Dad. The word seemed to hit Adrian like physical force. His eyes went bright with unshed tears. Yes. Yes, I'd like that very much. The nurse helped him settle in the chair beside Delilah's bed, showed him how to tuck the babies against his bare chest, their tiny bodies against his heartbeat. Adrian looked terrified and awed, his large hands cradling impossibly small heads. Hi, he whispered to Luna and Nova. Hi, my beautiful girls. I'm your daddy, and I promise you, I'm going to spend every day of my life making sure you know you're loved. You're wanted. You're my greatest adventure. Delilah watched through tears, watched this powerful man, reduced to trembling wonder by two tiny humans, and thought maybe, just maybe, they could make this work. The next 6 weeks passed in a blur of sleepless nights and steep learning curves. Adrian moved into Delilah's cramped apartment without complaint, sleeping on the couch because her bedroom barely fit the bed and two bassinets. He learned to change diapers with the same focus he'd once applied to corporate acquisitions, mastered swaddling through dozens of failed attempts, discovered that infant crying could break down even the strongest man's composure. I don't know what I'm doing, he confessed at 3 a.m, holding a screaming Nova while Luna decided to join the chorus. They hate me. I'm their father and they hate me. They don't hate you. They're 6 weeks old. They hate everything except milk and sleep. Delilah took Nova, her movements automatic from exhaustion and repetition. You're doing fine. I'm failing. You're learning. There's a difference. She settled Nova against her chest for feeding, while Adrian paced with Luna. Welcome to parenthood. It's terrifying and you never feel adequate, and somehow these tiny humans survive our incompetence and grow anyway. How did you do this alone? The question came quiet, awed. Before I showed up, how did you manage with Sienna? I cried a lot, asked for help when pride allowed it, made 1,000 mistakes, and somehow she turned out brilliant anyway. Delilah looked over at Sienna's room where her 5-year-old slept through the chaos, already adapted to life with twin sisters. Kids are resilient, more resilient than we give them credit for. I want to marry you. The declaration came out of nowhere. Delilah blinked, processing words that didn't fit the context of screaming babies and 3 a.m. exhaustion. What? I want to marry you, Adrian repeated, still pacing, still swaying Luna into calmness. Not because it's proper or because I'm trying to claim you, because I love you, because I want Sienna to know she's mine too, because I want us to be a family in every sense. Ask me when I've had more than 2 consecutive hours of sleep. I'm going to ask you every day until you say yes. That's annoying. That's a promise. And he did. Every morning, while making terrible coffee that Delilah drank anyway, because the effort mattered more than the taste, Adrian proposed. In the kitchen while babies cried in the background. In the grocery store while Sienna rode in the cart, singing made-up songs. In the park while pushing a double stroller and learning that parenthood meant your arms were always full and your heart was always bigger than you thought possible. Day 14, Delilah. Marry me. Ask me tomorrow. Day 15. Will you be my wife? The twins are crying. Ask me later. Day 21. Please say yes so I can stop coming up with creative ways to ask. You're supposed to come up with creative ways. That's how proposals work. Then marry me in the place we met. In a storm. With pain on your hands and my heart in your throat. That was almost poetic. Is that a yes? It's a maybe leaning toward yes. I'll take it. Now let me stop here and tell you something important. Something the rich don't advertise because it undermines their whole system. Wealth doesn't prepare you for real life. Adrian had billions, could buy anything, command anyone, but 2 tiny babies reduced him to helpless terror. And that terror, that vulnerability, that willingness to fail repeatedly in pursuit of learning, that's what made him a good father. Not his money, his presence. See, too many people think providing financially equals providing emotionally. They confuse checkbooks with connection. But kids don't need your money. They need you, your time, your attention, your willingness to show up when showing up is hard and inconvenient and exhausting. Adrian was learning this lesson in real time, and it was transforming him. Let's continue. Week 7 brought their first real fight. Adrian had been looking at houses without telling Delilah, had made appointments with real estate agents, had apparently decided unilaterally that her apartment was too small and they needed to move. You did what? Delilah's voice came dangerously quiet. I found some options. Good neighborhoods, excellent schools, space for everyone. He showed her listings on his phone like this was reasonable. I thought we could look at them this weekend. You thought. Delilah's hands clenched into fists. You made decisions about where we live without consulting me. I was trying to help. By taking over? By assuming I can't handle my own life? She was shouting now, weeks of exhaustion and hormones, and fear finding outlet in fury. This is exactly what I was afraid of. You swooping in with your money and your solutions, and completely disregarding that I've been managing just fine, in a 1-bedroom apartment with 3 children. That I pay for. That's mine. That might be small, but it's ours, and I didn't ask you to fix it. Adrian's jaw tightened. I'm trying to provide for my family. We're not a problem that needs solving with real estate. Delilah's voice cracked. We're people who need to be consulted. Partners make decisions together, Adrian. This is what I meant about transparency and communication. The silence that followed felt sharp enough to draw blood. Adrian set down his phone, ran his hands through his hair, exhaled slowly. You're right, he said finally. I'm sorry. I got excited about the idea of space, and I moved forward without thinking, without asking. That was wrong. The apology surprised her. Delilah had expected defensiveness, justification, all the things men usually deployed when confronted with their mistakes. I'm scared, Adrian continued quietly. Scared that this apartment is too small, and you're exhausted and I'm not doing enough. Scared that my money is the only valuable thing I bring to this family. So I try to use it to fix things, to prove I'm useful, and I end up making it worse. Your money isn't what makes you valuable to us. Delilah's anger deflated, replaced by something gentler. Sienna loves you because you play tea party with absolute seriousness. The twins calm down faster in your arms than mine half the time. You bring yourself, Adrian. That's what we need. I'm still buying us a house. But he smiled slightly. After we look together and you approve it, and we make the decision as partners. Better. Will looking at houses earn me a yes to the proposal? Absolutely not. Worth a shot. But something shifted after that fight. A pattern established. Conflict didn't mean ending. Disagreement didn't equal disaster. They could be angry and still love each other. Could mess up and apologize and try again. The house they eventually chose together was perfect in its imperfection. 4 bedrooms in a neighborhood where kids rode bikes in the street and neighbors knew each other's names. It had a yard, an actual yard where Sienna could play and the twins could eventually toddle. It had a studio space for Delilah with north-facing windows. It had a kitchen big enough for Adrian to practice cooking without burning the building down. This one, Delilah said, standing in the empty living room and seeing their future in the space. This feels like home. Then it's ours. Adrian wrapped his arms around her from behind, his chin resting on her shoulder. Should I ask again? Not yet. Why not? Because I want to say yes when I'm absolutely certain we can survive anything. When I trust that hard times won't break us. How do I prove that? Keep showing up. Keep being honest even when it's ugly. Keep choosing us. I can do that. Adrian murmured against her hair. I'm excellent at persistence. Month 4 brought an ultrasound appointment for the twins' checkup. Routine, the pediatrician had said, just making sure everything's developing properly. But walking into the clinic, Delilah felt Adrian's hand tighten around hers, felt his tension like a physical thing. What's wrong? She asked quietly while they waited. Nothing. Everything's fine, Adrian. I'm terrified, he admitted. Every appointment, every check, I'm convinced they're going to find something wrong, that I'm going to lose them, lose you, that this happiness is temporary and I'm just waiting for the other shoe to drop. Delilah squeezed his hand. That's called being a parent. Welcome to a lifetime of irrational fear and worst-case scenarios. How do you handle it? Badly. But we handle it badly together. The twins were perfect, healthy, developing normally, hitting all their milestones. The technician showed them images, explained growth charts, assured them their daughters were thriving. Walking out, Adrian looked like he'd survived a battle. Marry me, he said in the parking lot. Day 106. Marry me because life is fragile, and I don't want to waste another moment not being your husband. Not yet. But Delilah kissed him softly. Soon, I promise. What do you need to say yes? I need to know you won't run when things get hard. That you won't wake up one day and regret choosing this life over your old one. Delilah, he cupped her face, his gray eyes intense. I don't miss my old life. I don't want my old life. This, you, our daughters, this is everything I didn't know I was missing. There's no regret, only gratitude that I'm not still sleepwalking through an existence that looked successful, but felt empty. She wanted to believe him, was learning to believe him, but fear had roots that burrowed deep. The crisis came on a Tuesday. Delilah arrived at the hotel where she still worked part-time. The twins with a sitter and Sienna at kindergarten to find Adrian in the lobby. He wasn't alone. A woman stood beside him, elegant in the way old money taught, her hand possessive on his arm. Victoria Hammond. Delilah recognized her from society pages, from the research she'd done months ago trying to understand Adrian's world. Think about it, Victoria's voice carried, cultured and sharp. We're the same world, Adrian. This infatuation with the help is embarrassing. People are talking. Let them talk. Adrian's tone held ice, but he didn't move away. Didn't remove her hand from his arm. My personal life isn't your concern anymore, but your family's legacy is. Your reputation. The company's stock. Victoria's laugh sounded like breaking crystal. You think the board will respect the CEO who knocked up his maid? Think about what you're throwing away for temporary insanity. Delilah pressed herself against the wall, invisible in her uniform the way staff learned to be. Nausea rose in her throat, pregnancy or heartbreak impossible to distinguish. Victoria, we're done here. Adrian finally stepped back, finally dislodged her hand. What I do, who I love, it's none of your business. I'm trying to save you from a mistake that'll cost you everything. Victoria's expression shifted to something almost pitying. She's playing you, darling. The pregnancy was probably convenient timing. Women like that always know how to trap men like you. That's enough. Adrian's voice went cold. You need to leave. I'll leave. But when you come to your senses, when you realize what you sacrificed for a fantasy, don't expect me to be waiting. Victoria turned on her designer heel and walked away, her exit as polished as her cruelty. Adrian stood alone in the lobby, his shoulders tight with tension. He pulled out his phone, pressed it to his forehead, exhaled slowly. He looked tired, uncertain, like maybe some small part of him wondered if Victoria's poison held truth. And Delilah, watching from the shadows, felt every fear she'd tried to bury come roaring back to life. He didn't defend her with the fury she needed, didn't tell Victoria to take her poison and leave with the finality that would have proved his certainty. He looked exhausted by the confrontation, worn down by it, like maybe maintaining this relationship was becoming more trouble than it was worth. Delilah left through the service entrance before either could spot her. Her hands shook so badly she could barely unlock her car. Doubt flooded in where hope had been building. Was she trapping him? Was her pregnancy, accidental but undeniable, the reason he kept proposing? Would he eventually resent her for ruining the life Victoria described? That evening, when Adrian arrived for dinner like he had every night for 4 months, Delilah met him at the door with walls rebuilt and heart barricaded. "We need to stop this," she said before he could speak. Adrian's expression crumbled. "Delilah, what happened? What's wrong?" "I saw you today. With Victoria." Her voice came flat, emotionless, protection against the pain threatening to overwhelm her. "I heard what she said. And you know what? She's right. She's not. We're from different worlds. You're bored, your family, your entire life. I don't fit." Delilah forced herself to continue, to lance the wound before infection set in. Our babies deserve better than a father who resents their mother for ruining his legacy. "That's insane. I could never resent you." You looked uncertain, Adrian. When she called me a trap, when she talked about what you're sacrificing, you didn't defend me with the conviction I needed to see. You looked tired, like maybe she was voicing doubts you already had. I was tired. Tired of people like her who can't understand that I chose this, that I want this. His voice rose with desperation. "Delilah, please let me explain." "Explain what? That loving me is exhausting? That my world is small and inconvenient? That maybe you got caught up in chemistry and proximity, and now you're stuck with consequences you didn't really want?" "Stop." Adrian reached for her, but she stepped back. "Stop putting words in my mouth. Stop assuming you know what I'm thinking. Then tell me. Tell me you don't have doubts. Tell me Victoria's wrong, and you'll never wake up regretting this choice." "I can't promise I'll never have doubts." Adrian's honesty was devastating. "I can't promise every day will be easy or that I'll never wonder what if. But Delilah, everyone has doubts. Everyone wonders. That doesn't mean I don't choose you. It means I'm human. I need certainty." Her voice cracked. "I need to know that. 5 years from now, 10 years from now, you won't look at me and wish you'd chosen the easier path. There is no certainty. Not in life, not in love, just choice. Every day, choosing again. That's not enough." Delilah pulled off the delicate necklace he'd given her weeks ago. A simple pendant with 3 small stones representing their daughters. "Thank you for everything. For being present, for caring about the girls, for trying to do the right thing. But the right thing is letting you return to your world before we damage each other beyond repair." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying we're done. Go back to Victoria if that's easier. Go back to your empire. Just go, Adrian. Please, I love you." His voice broke completely. "Delilah, I love you. Not obligation, not guilt. Love. The kind that makes me want to burn down my entire life and rebuild it around you. Love isn't enough when reality crushes it." Tears finally came, hot and shameful. "Please go. Don't make this harder. If you need anything, money, support, anything at all, for you or the girls." His voice was wrecked, barely holding together. "We'll be fine." The lie tasted bitter. "We were fine before you. We'll be fine after." Adrian stood frozen in her doorway, devastation carved into every line of his face. Then he left, walked away with his shoulders bowed like he carried physical weight. And Delilah closed the door and slid down it, sobbing into her hands while the twins slept peacefully in the next room, unaware their mother had just destroyed their family. Sienna appeared in the hallway, her 5-year-old face worried. "You sent away your magic person." "That was dumb, Mama." "I know, baby." Delilah pulled her daughter close. "I know. Now, before we continue, I need to pause and ask you something. Have you ever pushed away the very thing you needed because fear felt safer than faith? Have you ever built walls so high that love couldn't climb them? Drop your answer in the comments because I want to hear your stories. And if you're finding this story hitting close to home, hit that like button. Subscribe to this channel for more stories that don't just entertain, but teach real lessons about life and love. Share this with someone who needs to hear that sometimes our protection mechanisms become our prisons. All right, let's get back to the heartbreak. 4 months crawled forward with the cruelty of time that healed nothing. Delilah's days blurred into routines that felt like going through motions. Wake up, feed babies, get Sienna to school, work, come home, repeat. She painted her pain, created canvases of dark colors that gallery owners called devastatingly raw, without understanding they were watching a heart bleed in oils and acrylics. Adrian honored her request for distance, but evidence of his presence appeared anyway. Anonymous payments covered medical bills. Her landlord mysteriously canceled a rent increase that should have forced them to move. Sienna's kindergarten received a donation that expanded their art program. He was taking care of them from shadows, respecting her boundaries while ensuring they wanted for nothing. It made hating him impossible and missing him unbearable. Roxy staged interventions weekly, appearing with coffee and brutal honesty. You're being stubborn and stupid. That man loves you. You love him. Why are you torturing yourselves? Because Victoria was right. I don't fit in his world. So make him fit in yours. Or build a new world together. Roxy's patience was evaporating. Delilah, pride isn't going to keep you warm at night. It's not going to co-parent twins. It's not going to fill the hole I watch growing in you every damn day. But pride was all Delilah had left to protect herself from complete devastation. Pride and fear, holding hands, keeping her locked in loneliness disguised as strength. The twins grew despite the chaos. Luna became the fighter, always moving, always demanding attention with lungs that could wake the dead. Nova was quieter, more observant, content to watch the world from her sister's shadow. They hit 4 months, then 5, rolling over and discovering their hands and smiling at everything except the exhausted woman trying to do it all alone. I wish their father could see this, Delilah admitted one evening while Roxy helped with bath time. These moments, their first real laughs, the way Nova watches everything like she's solving puzzles, how Luna screams when she's happy, not just upset. So call him, let him see it. And say what? Sorry I pushed you away because your ex-fiancé made me feel inadequate. Yes, exactly that. Roxy's bluntness was legendary. Apologize, be honest, stop letting fear make your decisions. But Delilah couldn't. Every time she picked up the phone, Victoria's words echoed. The help, convenient trap, embarrassing. She'd spent her whole life being invisible, being less than, and one conversation had reduced her back to that small, powerless feeling. Meanwhile, unknown to Delilah, Adrian was falling apart in equally spectacular fashion. He'd thrown himself into work with destructive focus, 16-hour days that left no time for feeling. But his assistant Damien noticed. His brother Julian noticed. His mother Barbara, when she called weekly, noticed the exhaustion in his voice. You need to fight for her, Julian said during one particularly brutal conversation. You love her, go fight. She told me to leave. Since when do you accept defeat? You built an empire by refusing to quit. Why are you quitting on the only thing that actually matters? Because she asked me to. Because respecting her boundaries feels like the only way to prove I'm not trying to control her. There's a difference between respecting boundaries and giving up. Julian's voice gentled. Call her, show up, prove that her fears are wrong. What if I prove them right? What if I am the wrong choice? Then at least you'll know. But right now you're both miserable, and your daughters are growing up without their father, and for what? Pride? Fear? Those are expensive reasons to stay apart. The words haunted Adrian. He started writing letters he never sent, pouring his heart onto pages that filled drawers in his desk. He drove past Delilah's apartment building at night, looking for her lights, torturing himself with proximity he couldn't cross. He became a ghost in his own life, present but absent, going through motions that felt meaningless. Barbara staged her own intervention, appearing at his office unannounced. "You look terrible." "Thank you, Mother. Very helpful. I didn't raise you to be a quitter." Barbara settled into the chair across from his desk with the authority of someone who'd raised 2 sons, mostly alone after her husband died young. "What happened with Delilah?" "She ended it. Decided I wasn't worth the complications." "And you accepted that?" "I respected her choice. Respect is wonderful. But sometimes love requires you to fight even when fighting is uncomfortable." Barbara leaned forward. "That woman gave you 3 daughters. She let you into her life despite every reason to protect herself. And you're going to let one conversation with a vindictive ex destroy what you built? She doesn't trust that I won't regret choosing her. Then prove you won't. Not with words, with actions. Show her what life looks like when you choose her every single day." "How do I do that from a distance? Who said anything about distance?" Barbara smiled. "You're Adrian Castellane. You've negotiated billion-dollar deals. Surely you can figure out how to win back the woman you love." The plan came together slowly. Adrian couldn't show up at Delilah's door, couldn't force contact she'd explicitly forbidden. But he could build proof, evidence that his choice was permanent, that he'd restructured his entire existence around a future with her. He stepped down from the company board officially, releasing a statement that sent shockwaves through business communities. Adrian Castellane, focusing on philanthropic work and family, would no longer participate in the corporate leadership that had defined 3 generations of his family. The media went wild. Speculation ran rampant. But Adrian ignored it all and kept working. He sold the Castellane estate, that monument to old money and emptiness. Put the proceeds into a foundation focused on supporting single mothers, providing childcare and job training, and the kind of practical help that actually changed lives. He cut ties with social circles that measured worth in pedigree and portfolio size, stopped attending galas and charity events that were really just opportunities for the wealthy to congratulate themselves. He bought that house, the one he and Delilah had looked at together, and furnished it simply. 4 bedrooms, waiting for occupants. A studio with north-facing windows. A kitchen where he practiced cooking with increasing competence. He documented everything. Not for social media, not for public consumption, but for Delilah. Building a case that this wasn't temporary insanity. This was permanent transformation. 3 months into their separation, Adrian sent a package. Not to Delilah, but to Roxy with a note. "Please give this to her when you think she's ready. Or don't. I trust your judgment." Roxy opened it first, of course. Found a flash drive and a letter. The letter laid out everything Adrian had done. Every choice he'd made. Every bridge he'd burned to build a new life. The flash drive contained documentation. Articles, legal papers, property deeds, proof. Roxy sat on the information for 2 weeks, watching Delilah deteriorate slowly. Watching her paint darkness and pretend she was fine and lose weight she couldn't afford to lose. Finally, she couldn't take it anymore. "You need to see this." Roxy handed over the package during one of their kitchen table therapy sessions. "Before you say no, just look. Give him that much." Delilah's hands shook, opening the envelope. She read Adrian's letter twice, then a third time, tears making the ink blur. "He dismantled his life," she whispered, "for me, for the possibility of us. He loves you." Roxy said it simply. "He loves you, and he's proving it the only way he knows how. The question is, are you brave enough to believe it? What if I let him back in and he leaves again? What if this is all grand gesture and no substance? Then you'll survive. You survived before. But Lila, what if it's real? What if you push away your forever because you're too scared to risk getting hurt?" Delilah looked at the flash drive like it might explode. Looked at Adrian's careful handwriting, explaining choices that must have cost him everything. Looked at her reflection in the darkened window and saw fear staring back. "I'm terrified," she admitted. "Good. Being terrified means it matters. Now the question is, what are you going to do about it? Delilah spent 3 days reviewing everything on that flash drive. Articles about Adrian's corporate withdrawal, legal documents showing the foundation he'd created, property records for the house waiting empty, photographs of the life he'd built in blueprint form, waiting for her to step into it. She drafted texts she didn't send, picked up the phone and set it down a dozen times, drove past his apartment building but couldn't make herself go inside. 4 months of separation had taught her something important. She could survive alone, could raise 3 daughters and work and make art and build a life that looked functional from the outside. But surviving wasn't the same as living, and she missed him with a fierceness that made breathing hurt. On day 5, Delilah finally sent a message. Simple, honest, terrifying. I was wrong. I'm ready to listen if you're ready to talk. The girls miss you. I miss you. Can we try again? The response took hours. Hours where Delilah second-guessed everything, where she convinced herself he'd moved on, found someone easier, someone who didn't come with complications and baggage and 3 small humans who needed constant attention. Then her phone buzzed. I've been ready since the moment you left. Just tell me when and where. I'll be there. Relief hit so hard, Delilah had to sit down. Tomorrow. Come tomorrow. Meet your daughters properly. Meet me properly. Let's start over and do this right. Tomorrow, Adrian confirmed. I'll be there. Delilah spent the next 24 hours in controlled chaos, cleaning her apartment until it gleamed, dressing the twins in matching outfits Sienna helped pick out, trying on 6 different outfits herself before Roxy physically removed the options and handed her jeans and a soft sweater. You look beautiful. Stop panicking. He's going to take one look at you and remember why he burned his whole life down. Roxy's confidence was unshakable. Now breathe. This is a beginning, not an ending. What if I mess this up? Then you'll figure it out together. That's what partners do. The knock came at exactly the agreed time. Delilah opened the door to find Adrian holding flowers. Nothing ostentatious, just simple daisies that probably cost $5 from the grocery store. He'd learned. Hi, he said quietly. His eyes devoured her, cataloging changes 4 months had wrought. You look beautiful. You look tired. I haven't slept properly in 4 months. He admitted it easily, no pretense. Delilah, I'm sorry for not defending you more forcefully with Victoria, for making you feel uncertain. For every moment of doubt I caused, I'm sorry for running, for not trusting that what we had was strong enough to survive pressure, for pushing you away when I should have held on tighter. Can we stop apologizing and start over? Yes, please. Adrian stepped inside, and Sienna launched herself at him with 5-year-old enthusiasm. You came back. I told Mama you'd come back. Magic people always come back. I'm back, Munchkin. He hugged her tightly. I missed you so much. I missed you too. Sienna pulled back to look at him seriously. Are you staying this time? For real staying? If your mama will let me, I'm staying forever. Sienna looked at Delilah with eyebrows raised, the expression so adult it was almost funny. Mama, go get your sisters, baby. Let them meet their daddy properly. When Sienna disappeared into the nursery, Delilah and Adrian stood in awkward silence. 4 months of distance making nearness strange. I meant what I said in the letter, Adrian started. Every word. I've restructured my entire life. Not as grand gesture, as foundation. This is who I am now, who I want to be. I know. I saw the documentation. Delilah moved closer. That must have been terrifying. Walking away from everything you knew. The only terrifying thing was losing you. Everything else was just logistics. Sienna returned, pushing a double stroller with Luna and Nova strapped in, 6 months old now. Alert and curious. Adrian dropped to his knees in front of them, his expression transformed by wonder and grief. They're so big, he breathed. I miss you so much. Then, don't miss anymore. Delilah knelt beside him. Stay. Be their father. Be my partner. Help me figure out how to do this impossible, beautiful, messy thing called family. Is that a yes? To the proposal I've been asking for months? It's a yes to trying. To building something together instead of alone. To being brave enough to risk getting hurt because the alternative is safe and empty, and I'm so tired of empty. Adrian cupped her face, his thumb tracing her cheekbone. I'm going to ask you properly. Soon. With a ring and a plan and the kind of proposal you deserve. But right now, can I just kiss you? Because 4 months without touching you has been torture. Yes. Please, yes. They kissed while Sienna made exaggerated gagging noises, and the twins watched with wide, curious eyes. Kissed like coming home after a long journey. Kissed like beginning and continuation at once. When they finally pulled apart, Adrian was crying. Delilah was crying. Even Sienna had gotten misty-eyed, though she'd never admit it. So what now? Delilah asked. Now we figure it out. Together. Adrian stood, offering his hand. Show me how they've grown. Tell me everything I missed. Let me start learning how to be present for all of you. And Delilah took his hand, chose courage over fear, chose hope over protection, and let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, some love stories survived the storm by learning to dance in the rain instead of waiting for sunshine. 3 weeks later, on an unseasonably warm evening, Adrian did propose properly. He took Delilah back to the Castellane estate, which he'd arranged to access one final time before the new owners took possession. Back to the studio where they'd first crossed the line, from strangers to something more. He'd set up canvases and paints, had recreated that night as closely as possible, without the storm, though spring rain obliged by starting halfway through the evening. Paint with me, he said, handing her a brush. Show me what the last year has looked like from your perspective. So she painted. Their collision, their separation, their reunion. Used colors to express what words couldn't capture. Adrian painted too, his work still amateur but earnest, showing his journey from empty to full. When they finished, when their pieces stood side by side, showing two perspectives of one story, Adrian cleaned paint from her hands with gentle care. Then he knelt. Delilah Monroe. He pulled out a ring, simple and perfect, a single diamond flanked by 2 smaller stones. I'm asking for the last time. Not because I'll stop loving you if you say no, but because after this I'm just going to keep showing you every day that you made the right choice and saying, yes. Will you marry me? Will you let me be Sienna's father officially? Will you build this wild, imperfect, beautiful life with me? Delilah looked at the man who dismantled his empire to build her a home, who learned to change diapers and make terrible coffee and show up even when showing up was hard, who'd chosen her not once but repeatedly, consistently, permanently. Yes, she said simply. Yes to all of it. Yes forever. The wedding happened quickly. Small ceremony in a garden with spring flowers blooming and 3 daughters as witnesses. Sienna served as flower girl and self-appointed wedding coordinator, directing guests with the authority of someone 3 times her age. Luna and Nova, now 7 months old, were passed between relatives, dressed in matching white dresses that lasted approximately 10 minutes before Spit Up required costume changes. Roxy stood as maid of honor, crying through the entire ceremony despite her frequent claims that weddings were commercial nonsense. Adrian's brother Julian served as best man, his toast both heartfelt and hilarious, talking about the transformation he'd witnessed in his brother from corporate robot to actual human. But the vows were what mattered. Adrian spoke first, his voice steady despite tears streaming down his face. Delilah, I promise to choose you when choosing gets hard, to trust you with ugly truths, to build our world together instead of asking you to fit into mine. To love these girls, he gestured to Sienna, Luna, and Nova with everything I am. To be present, real, and yours for as long as you'll have me. I promise that every decision we make together. That I'll never again try to protect you by keeping you in the dark. And I promise that whatever storms come, we weather them side by side. Delilah's response came through tears. Adrian, I promise to let you in when fear tells me to run. To believe you when you say you're staying. To build this messy, beautiful life together and remember that love isn't perfect. It's choosing each other anyway. I promise to trust that you chose this life not from obligation, but from genuine want. And I promise that I'll keep choosing you, too, every day, in all the small ways that build a forever. They sealed it with a kiss, while 3 daughters bore witness to promises made and meant to be kept. While friends and family who'd watched them nearly destroy something precious now celebrated their courage in fighting for it instead. The reception was small and perfect, dancing in the garden while fireflies provided ambiance. Cake that Luna got more in her face than in her mouth. Sienna's impromptu speech about how love is choosing your person, even when they make mistakes, which made every adult present cry into their champagne. Later, when guests departed and children finally surrendered to sleep, despite their best efforts to stay awake, Adrian and Delilah stood alone in the garden where they just committed to forever. No regrets? Delilah asked, leaning into his embrace. Not even one. Adrian kissed her softly. Best decision I ever made was offering to share that room during the storm. Best decision I ever made was saying yes. They swayed together. No music except spring breeze through trees. No audience except stars. And built the Raibaili, first memory of their married life. Simple. Quiet. Theirs. 5 years later, Delilah stood in the sunlit studio of their home, the normal-sized house they'd chosen together, adding finishing touches to a painting. This piece showed 5 figures weathering a storm together, not running from it, standing united as lightning illuminated their faces. It had taken her 3 months to get it right, to capture the feeling she wanted. That's stunning. Adrian's voice came from the doorway, where he stood covered in flour from the baking disaster happening in their kitchen. Luna and Nova had decided cupcakes required creative interpretation of the recipe, which in practice meant adding whatever ingredients looked interesting. That's us. Delilah set down her brush, moving into his arms despite the flour cloud. Surviving storms, thriving through them. He kissed her softly. The kind of kiss that came from 5 years of practice, of knowing exactly how she liked to be touched. Did I tell you today that I love you? Only 6 times. You're slipping. Unacceptable. I love you. He kissed her forehead. I love you. Her nose. I love you. Her mouth. Deeper this time, with intention that made her pulse quicken, even after 5 years. Daddy, the cupcakes are making smoke signals. Sienna's shout interrupted, now 10 years old and appointed guardian of her younger sister's chaos. I told them less baking soda, but no one listens to me. Because you're bossy, Nova called back, now 5 and already showing signs of inheriting her mother's artistic temperament. I'm strategic. There's a difference. Sienna's response came with the long-suffering tone of someone managing unruly subordinates. Luna, also 5, but with her father's commanding presence, announced, if everyone would follow my system, we wouldn't have problems. Your system is dictatorship, Nova countered. We discussed this. Adrian sighed, but his smile held nothing but contentment. Our beautiful chaos calls, our perfect disaster, Delilah corrected. And hand in hand, they went to rescue the kitchen from whatever creative destruction 3 daughters had orchestrated. Later, much later, when smoke had cleared and cupcakes were declared abstract, but edible, when 3 daughters were finally sleeping after elaborate bedtime negotiations that involved Sienna reading to her younger sisters, Adrian and Delilah collapsed onto their couch, exhausted and complete. Do you ever miss it? Delilah asked quietly. Your old life. The ease of having staff handle everything, the power and prestige. Adrian pulled her closer, his heartbeat steady beneath her ear. I didn't give up anything that mattered. I traded empty for full, performance for authenticity, loneliness for love, so consuming it terrifies and thrills me in equal measure. That's very poetic for someone who just spent an hour negotiating with a 5-year-old about whether bedtime is a suggestion. She gets that stubbornness from you. She gets it from both of us. Delilah tilted her face. Delilah tilted up to kiss him. Our perfect disaster. Perfectly imperfect, Adrian corrected. And I wouldn't change a single chaotic moment. Outside, spring rain began falling. Gentle this time, life-giving rather than destructive. Delilah listened to it and remembered another storm, another night, when lightning had struck and changed everything. That night rewrote our existence, she said softly. Best rewrite ever. Adrian's arms tightened around her. Though I have to say, the sequel is even better. They sat in comfortable silence, listening to rain and the quiet sounds of home. A house full of love instead of an estate full of emptiness. 3 daughters sleeping peacefully instead of loneliness keeping them awake. A partnership built on truth instead of performance built on pretense. I love you, Delilah whispered. I love you more, Adrian countered. Impossible. But you're welcome to spend forever trying to prove it. Challenge accepted. And in that moment, in that perfect, imperfect life they built from storm and chaos and courage, they had everything that mattered. Now let me tell you what this story is really about. Let me break down the lessons, because they matter more than the romance. First, real wealth isn't measured in bank accounts. Adrian had billions, but he was bankrupt in everything that mattered. He was surrounded by people, but drowning in loneliness. He could buy anything except the thing he needed most. Genuine connection. True richness is measured in relationships, in love, in purpose, in having people who know the real you and choose you anyway. That's wealth. Everything else is just numbers on screens. Second, vulnerability is strength, not weakness. Both Adrian and Delilah had to drop their armor, had to risk being hurt, had to show up authentically instead of performing whatever version they thought the other needed. That vulnerability, that willingness to be seen completely, that's what created real intimacy. Not the perfection, the honest mess of being human. Third, class divides are illusions we choose to maintain. Society wants you to believe that rich and poor can't mix, that different worlds can't collide. But love doesn't see tax brackets. Connection doesn't care about pedigree. Those divisions exist because they serve power structures, not because they're real. Human connection transcends circumstance when we let it. Fourth, fear of pain often causes more pain than the pain itself. Delilah ran from Adrian because she was scared of getting hurt. And that running, that protection, created 4 months of suffering, worse than any rejection could have been. We build walls to keep pain out, but those same walls trap us in loneliness. Sometimes the bravest thing is staying when every instinct screams, run. Fifth, second chances require humility from both sides. Adrian had to prove himself, had to dismantle his life and rebuild it to show Delilah his choice was permanent. But Delilah had to forgive, had to trust, had to accept that people change and mean it. Second chances don't work when only one person is trying. Both have to choose courage. 6, actions speak louder than words. Adrian could have sent flowers and apologies. Instead, he restructured his empire, sold the estate, cut toxic connections, built proof that his transformation was real. Anyone can say they'll change. Few people actually do the hard work of changing. Watch what people do, not what they say. 7, pride is expensive. It costs you everything that matters. Delilah almost lost her family because pride told her accepting help was weakness. Adrian almost lost his daughters because pride said asking for help wasn't masculine. Pride masquerades as strength, but it's really fear in disguise. The strongest people are the ones humble enough to admit they need help. And finally, Love is a choice you make every single day. It's not just a feeling that happens to you. It's a decision to keep showing up even when showing up is hard. To choose partnership when independence would be easier. To build something together that neither of you could build alone. That daily choice, that commitment, that's what creates forever. These aren't just lessons for romance. These are lessons for life. About how we show up for each other. About what actually matters in this short time we get on Earth. About building lives that feel full instead of just looking successful. So let me ask you, what walls are you building that keep out the very thing you need? Who have you pushed away because fear felt safer than faith? What would happen if you chose courage over comfort? Think about it. Really think. And that brings me to you, my friends watching this right now. If this story moved you, if these lessons hit home, I need you to do something. Hit that like button. Tell the algorithm that stories with real meaning matter. That you want more content that teaches while it entertains. Subscribe to this channel because every week I bring you stories like this. Stories about real people facing real challenges and learning real lessons. Stories that don't just pass time, they transform it. Comment below. Tell me which lesson hit you hardest. Tell me your own story about choosing courage over fear. Tell me about the storm that changed your life. I read every comment. Your stories matter to me. And share this video. Send it to 3 people who need to hear that it's never too late to choose differently. That love is possible even across divides. That transformation is real when you're brave enough to do the work. Your share might be exactly what someone needs today. Turn on notifications because next week I'm bringing you another story that'll challenge everything you think you know about success and happiness. You won't want to miss it. This isn't just a channel, it's a community. You're not just watching. You're part of a family that believes stories can change lives, that lessons wrapped in narrative stick deeper than lectures, that we're all figuring this out together. Thank you for being here. Thank you for investing your time in something meaningful. Thank you for being the kind of person who believes that love and courage and authenticity matter in a world that often prioritizes all the wrong things. Until next time, remember this. Real wealth isn't what you have. It's who you love and who loves you back. It's not the size of your house, but the size of your heart. It's not how much you own, but how much you give. It's not power over others, but connection with others. Adrian learned that lesson. Delilah learned that lesson. And now you have the chance to learn it too. Some love stories begin in storms. The greatest ones survive them again and again, growing stronger in the lightning, more beautiful in the rain, more certain in the thunder. This was that kind of love. Messy, imperfect, absolutely real. The kind worth fighting for, the kind worth keeping. I'm Mr. Whitmore, and these are the secrets of the rich. The real secret. The richest people aren't the ones with the most money. They're the ones with the most love. Remember that. Live that. Be that. Until next time, my friends. Choose courage. Choose love. Choose the storm, because that's where life happens.